What's up, humans? Welcome to New Psicoactivo. I was just on a live stream with Patrick from Reddit, Clint from Night Shift, and Simon Holland, the science filmmaker from his channel, Professor Simon Holland. We had a wonderful conversation. I'm going to leave it in the description. But now I am making a video about the first effect that Lue Elizondo's appearance in The Daily Show had with regular folk, regular people. So let's go to Reddit on the UFOs subreddit. Here it is. A person called Yoniesh said, I'm an engineer, have been all my life, completely skeptical of the UFO phenomenon. Saw this guy Lue Elizondo in Daily Show spitting some facts. To be frank, have that terrified feeling in my gut. Is this for real? Is US government actually going to confess the existence of aliens? I'm not shaken. It's a bit of a twist in my worldview. Don't know how to digest this stuff. Where to start? And I have zero knowledge of what to expect. Always thought Roswell and rest of it is more like a tourist attraction. If I have to understand this, where to start? Is it like Independence Day aliens or something else? So basically, what I'm going to do now is try to tell newcomers who stumble upon my channel what the best options are for you to start looking into the phenomenon. The first thing I would do would be to avoid pretty much all sci-fi movies that have to do with aliens, unless it's a Steven Spielberg production, because the dude has some connections with the real world. The French character in Close Encounters of the Third Kind is based on Dr. Jacques Vallée. Who is Dr. Jacques Vallée? Well, he's a French computer scientist who was part of the famous Project Blue Book, which was one of the first government programs to study the UFO phenomenon, especially crash retrievals or sightings. And this was happening in the 50s, and it was essentially a program to debunk the whole subject. So Vallée maintained his career for a long time. He first started Project Blue Book with the lead scientist on it, Dr. J. Allen Hynek. And Dr. Jacques Vallée became, to my knowledge, the most important ufologist of all time. He's written a couple of books that are very important for the subject. One of them is called Passport to Magonia. I'm going to leave a small clip of Dr. Jacques Vallée talking about Passport to Magonia right here.
And the term Magonia came from the writings of the Archbishop of Lyon in the 9th century. He was writing against the superstitions of the time. He was a skeptic. And he said that one of the things that people believed around Lyon was that there was a magical land above the clouds, which is where the cloud ships came from. Well, what cloud ships? Well, those were obviously physical things that people saw coming from the sky. Not only that, but there were people coming out of those cloud ships. And he said one day the crowd in Lyon brought him 4 people, 3 men and 1 woman, in chains that they had captured coming out of one of those cloud ships, and they thought they were witches. So they were going to kill them. And he preached to the crowd that this could not, that they could not have come out of a cloud ship because there was no such thing. And of course, he was arguing as a theologian that witches did not have enough power to affect the weather and atmospheric phenomena, that this was something that would take away from the majesty of God. And that was his argument against the superstitions of the time and against Magonia. And I thought it was such a great story that I called my book Passport to Magonia.
Oh, wonderful.
So he has another book called The Invisible College, which talks about an unofficial group of scientists who are trying to look at the phenomenon from the background, not in plain sight or not in public, because they believe that the advancement on these topics takes the larger leaps when it's done in secret. That may have been the case back when the internet wasn't around, but now with the internet, it's way more difficult to keep anything secret. So I think that the Invisible College does need to evolve a little bit. But yeah, those two books are essential for you to maybe start understanding this. Another book, anything from Richard Dolan, who is one of the most important UFO historians of all time. Fortunately, he covers the UFO phenomenon from the government standpoint, the secrecy of it, and encounters and sightings and all that stuff. There's also John Keel, who's an author who wrote famously the Mothman Prophecies, but the most important book in his catalog is called Operation Trojan Horse, which talks about the UFO phenomenon from a different perspective compared to Jacques Vallée, but they were friends. So historically, these two figures are arguably the most important ones in the UFO phenomenon. But there's a lot of people you guys need to look at. Put out a pen and a paper because I'm going to say them slowly. You're going to write them down and then you're going to start looking into them, their names. So let's go with Dr. John Mack from Harvard, Dr. Stanton Friedman, who is the first astrophysicist who started looking at the UFO phenomenon seriously ever. They're no longer with us. May them rest in peace. George Knapp, one of the most important journalists on the topic, who broke the story of Mr. Bob Lazar, who was like, he spoke about UAP in the early 90s, late 80s, and has a fantastical story to tell. There's a brilliant documentary about him made by Jeremy Corbell. Corbell is now a partner of George Knapp. They work together. They have a podcast called Weaponized. It's a good podcast, so you guys should check that out. There's also Mr. Ross Coulthart, who is like more up to these times. He's an Australian journalist who has he works for News Nation right now, but he broke the story of David Grush, who is the former Air Force and former intelligence official who testified in Congress about this reality and under oath. So you might want to check that out. The audience is very important because it was an official setting. It was under oath, as I tell you. Another two Navy pilots were at these hearings. One of them tells a story that is the one that made me start looking at this even more. Commander David Fravor. He talks about an encounter he had out of the coast of Ensenada. And what he talks about is incredible. Just take a look at that too. But there's so much. So many books. The UFO of God, American Cosmic, what else? The Secret Machines books are very important. Those were written by Tom DeLonge and author Peter Levenda. The nonfiction ones. You gotta take a look at those too. Everybody who looks at this video needs to understand and is not like privy to this information has a lot of homework to do if you now realize that there's something to this. So I'm glad you're here. Welcome. And just beware, the UFO community as a whole has a lot of dark history behind it, but also a lot of positive interactions between them, depending on which story you're taking a look at. So be mindful that everybody has their own fight going on or their own investigation. And as long as you remain respectful, I think you're going to be fine. But if you go out into the UFO community and try to call people out on something you don't agree with, that is not the best approach. Because if you do that, it's going to get you a lot of enemies real quick. And it is going to prevent you from investigating this properly. So be respectful, be mindful that you need to, whatever you hear, no matter how fantastical it sounds, you cannot just go ahead and tell people, no, that's not real, or that has been debunked. Even if it has, that automatically puts you in a position where you become a target for either harassing or trolling, or so you need to be respectful. You need to be patient with a lot of people who are talking about this, because you're not going to agree with most of them. And some of these stories also that I need to tell you guys about are pretty scary, because they touch on alien abductions, cattle mutilations, and some other things that are way too out there for people who are new to this. I would recommend you guys to, for now, learn the ropes about the technology history, the crash retrieval history, and the books I told you about are a good start. But the more out there stuff and the more scary stuff, you might want to leave it a little bit on the background until you get more acquainted to this. I know I mentioned John Mack. He talks about abductions a lot, but I think his work is one of the most important in the subject. So just keep an open mind. Yeah. And I am glad I told you in my previous video that this was going to happen. This effect that Lue had on the population that is watching that interview. And I can guarantee you that Lue is going to be talking to a lot more people about this and helping making UFOs and the UFO phenomenon topic go mainstream. But please understand, this is not as simple as just saying, this is little green man. It's not like that. You need to understand that there's a reason they call it a phenomenon. And there's a reason the government changed the name from UFOs, because there's been so much stigma attached to it for so many decades, to UAP. UAP means unidentified anomalous phenomena. Used to be aerial, but people realized quickly that it's anomalous because it's not just in the air. It's also in the water. It is also weird stuff that people see, weird encounters with weird beings that people report on that they allegedly have. So take a breath and please understand, the world is actually much weirder than you previously imagined. And as I tell you, science fiction only accustoms you to part of it, but most of it is hard to wrap your head around. So be mindful of that and just keep an open mind. But more importantly, always try to have facts, fact-driven data, potential evidence, and proof that what you're looking at has a reason to be investigated, because there are a lot of conspiracy theories out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there that has been disseminated throughout decades from the people that are keeping the secret, and you need to learn how to identify one from the other. It is not easy. It is not. It is a daunting endeavor to some. I get it, but it is necessary for people to get on this and start learning, because what Lue has been talking about means that when confirmation takes place, if it does, there's a lot of different kinds of changes that are going to happen in every aspect of human society. There's going to be political change, financial change, philosophical change, scientific change, religious change, and to some people who are not accustomed to this, who are not read up on at least some of what's going on, it is going to be a shock. They call it ontological shock. What we're trying to prevent, channels like this one and others like Vetted Podcasts, Down to Earth, Night Shift, Professor Simon Holland, Engaging the Phenomenon, That UFO podcast, Weaponized, Reality Check. There are so many. We are trying to prevent you from having that ontological shock affect you in your day to day life. So, those of you who are already looking into this and you weren't aware, those are good places to start. Both books, podcasts, documentaries too. Mr. James Fox has some of the most important documentaries about the topic. One is called The Phenomenon, another one is called Moment of Contact. That's a great one. There's another one that is a classic called Unacknowledged from Dr. Stephen Greer. Dr. Stephen Greer is now considered quite divisive due to the whole history arc that he's lived through. More on that later. There are many videos about this, but that documentary is essential. You got to look at it. And another book, it's called The Hunt for Zero Point, that talks about the tech aspect of this, a more like realistic approach to all of this. So that's also recommended. It's from author Nick Cook. Another channel is called American Alchemy, one of my favorites, from Jesse Michaels. You can check that out too. He does amazing work. So I hope that covers a little bit of it. And now I'm going to switch a little bit to the viewers that usually see me more often. I was just with Patrick at Vetted, and you may have seen me not as smiley as I usually am. That has a reason, because I've seen that after my reporting of the James Webb stuff, I've seen some of the bigwigs talking about this event and the discovery from the telescope. And they're getting a reference that maybe they're not reading the room. I don't know. Maybe it's on purpose, but they used a reference from a very famous movie called Don't Look Up, where Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence are starring in that movie. And that's about an asteroid that is going to destroy Earth, and they're trying to communicate it to the people, and the people are not listening. I think that was a terrible reference to make, because they did a combination of that movie from the scenes of the interview Lue Elizondo did on The Daily Show. That's like alluding to impending disaster or impending doom, and that is not smart. It's what I've been telling you all along. If you're going to approach this, and if something is coming here, we can't, under any circumstance, act from fear. That is not going to take us anywhere productive. It is okay to be scared. Please be mindful of this. It is okay to be scared. But we cannot show that fear in public. We need to engage the problem from a more strategic standpoint, and try to look at all the possibilities. Because if we're like under a sense of urgency and fear, we're not thinking straight. You know what that is like. You've been in those situations your whole life. When you're scared, acting out of fear, a lot of things go past you, and you never find out what happened, and you do stupid shit. So this is not advisable. Stop doing that, people, please. Making those references, no. There are so many other smarter ways to communicate this, which is why I'm trying to do, but these people are not helping the case. So I urge you, if you know something, you have information that will help us get more clarity on this, please share it and stop doing that. It's not advisable. I am not going to even play that or share the names of the people who are doing it, but you know who you are. And I really admire you. And I admire a lot of the work that you guys do, but please don't do that. Thank you. If you like the content you see, like, share, comment, subscribe. You know the deal. I was just laid off from my work, so any kind of help you send my way right now, while I find something more of substance, more steady, will be very appreciated. I will leave a few links in the description. And if you like the content, just share it and comment and like and subscribe. That, most of all, that is going to keep helping me. The other stuff, if you want, that's fine. If not, that's also really okay. I still love doing this, and I still love all of you sending your comments my way and just communicating with all of you. So, thank you. And to all the newcomers, watch all my videos. I have a lot of different topics on these subjects, and I think that are going to help you understand this a little better. Welcome. So, without further ado, I'll leave you guys until tomorrow's video. Bye.